Hi, and welcome to another episode of ParaScope, the paranormal podcast from A to Z. We are actually going to be kind of rushing through to the end of the alphabet so that we can start focusing on experiences that people are having in the museum.
Yes.
So, going forward, the ParaScope podcast will include stories from inside the museum as well as odd things that occur to us and the nature of the paranormal as a whole.
People come into the museum all the time and talk about different things that go on in their lives. And they love to tell us ghost stories and stuff like that. And sometimes I'm pretending to understand it. So I'm like, oh my God, that's cool. I don't understand it, but that's cool. So we can talk about that.
We
in
can
our
kind of
podcast.
break it down
Yeah.
and see what kinds of things that people are going through. But we went ahead and we looked at what we had been posting as far as the alphabet is concerned.
Mhm.
And even though we did record a few of the letters, we realized that we don't have a reliable posting schedule.
Oops.
And so, yes, we are going to, I think we're just going to start with the letter S and go straight through to Z in this episode. This is a banner episode.
Banner.
You get S through Z. So we'll start with S.
Now, we had a young woman come in, very young woman, a child. And
Right.
she was giving us suggestions, and she gave a suggestion of the sea monster. That's Nessie,
Nessie.
which also has
Nessie.
2 S's in it.
Fantastic. So, yes, the Loch Ness Monster is one of the most famous cryptids on Earth. It is possibly and arguably the most famous cryptid on Earth.
Which takes off the Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah. It rivals Bigfoot easily because Loch Ness Monster is a singular entity that lives in Loch Ness, which is a lake. It's not really a sea per se, but it has all of the characteristics of a sea monster. And
Yes.
sea monsters have been reported since man first got on a boat and went out to sea because the sea is full of scary things.
Mm.
There are so
Here
many
there be
things.
monsters.
And it would be easy to misidentify a lot of things.
Sure.
If you were just out on a boat and you saw like pieces of a whale swimming by, you'd be like, did you see that? It was massive. It was huge.
Huge.
And I didn't get a good look at the whole thing. But if I put it together in my head,
Now, it wasn't just pieces of a whale. It was a whale that you only saw parts of. It
right.
wasn't
I'm
like-
not saying that there was like a whale pieces like floating on their own. I meant, yes, the visible parts of a whale that crest over the water. For
Yes.
crying out loud.
I'm here for clarification's sake.
Fair enough. But Nessie is one of the more celebrated and researched. There's so much research that goes into Loch Ness, and
Mhm.
so many people have taken to Loch Ness with all kinds of equipment, sonar and submergible cameras and all of these things to find Nessie. And as of right now, they haven't.
Nope.
She is very elusive.
But she's not the only sea monster. I mean, we
No.
have our own, the Altamahaha.
The Altamahaha is just 45 miles south of Savannah is Darien, Georgia. There is a river called the Altamaha, and the Altamaha is home to the Altamahaha.
Aha!
Aha! The Altamahaha has all the characteristics of Nessie.
Right.
A
Brontosaurus.
prehistoric sea creature
Mm.
that lives in the river. And of course, there's Champy at Lake Champlain. There's, I think, Lake Erie has one. I think that anytime you get into a big body of water, you're going to have sightings of things that people don't understand or can't put together, and it births sea monsters.
Yes.
I also like to touch upon Supernatural, as long as we're on S.
The television show?
Well, the television show is great if you watch it. The first 5 seasons, very solid. After that, while still very enjoyable, they go off the rails and things get hairy. But no, the word supernatural. It's interesting because I think people take supernatural to be sort of interchangeable with paranormal. That you can use supernatural for paranormal and paranormal for supernatural. But the truth of the matter is they actually mean different things. Supernatural is something that is above nature, beyond nature, not natural, something that cannot exist in nature and therefore supernatural. These are forces like vampires or
Ugh.
are supernatural because they don't exist in a natural form. Paranormal is beside the normal. It is
Mm.
achievable to observe within normal constraints. That is something that you can actually use science to kind of verify. That is why paranormal is not necessarily the same as supernatural, because supernatural does kind of contend that they are beyond the constraints of the natural world.
So cryptids then are paranormal, but not supernatural.
Yes, unless of
Pretty much.
course, right,
Yeah.
you start to move into, because Mothman is a good tipping point. It seems supernatural, but it actually does perform more as, or it seems paranormal, but it performs more as a supernatural because it predicts the future and shows up with impending doom. And there's all kinds of reasons why Mothman has a more mysterious
Hmm.
uh, existence that kind of nudge it towards the supernatural. But yes, paranormal is something that is walking right beside the normal. Supernatural is something above and beyond magic and things of that nature.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to tea.
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 Yes.
Yes.
Lots of
Tea.
things to talk about in tea.
Yeah. That. Go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
No. No.
I
No.
started
Yeah.
S,
No. I think
so
that you
you can
should. You
start
should
T.
absolutely bring us the tea.
T-shirts are available here at the Savannah Paranormal Museum with our logo on them.
This is true. We do have T-shirts, and we do seem to have a paranormal right in the middle of
Yeah,
our name.
it's
So that
yeah,
is
it's related. We wore the same
paranormal.
T-shirt without trying.
Yeah, it's very true.
T.
T.
Tarot cards are sitting in front of me.
Excellent. Oh yeah, tarot cards. What an that's a fantastic paranormal subject.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
tarot cards are basically a set of cards used for divination, used to find information from the spiritual realm or through energy sort of distribution. And oftentimes you'll get all kinds of interesting rules about tarot decks, like no one's supposed to touch your tarot deck, or
Mm-hmm.
when you're reading, the only person who should touch another person who is being read, things of that nature. You'll find that there are a wide variety of it, but tarot deck as a divination tool dates back, you know, centuries, because it drives itself through the reading of signs
Mm.
and by creating symbols and signs that allow people to extrapolate a truth. And so tarot decks are one of those very sensitive subjects because some people put a lot of weight into tarot and other people none at all. And that creates this huge divide because it does seem like just a randomizer where people are pulling uh, extrapolating a series of answers using imagery and using these things that you might think is forced. However, many people have had profound experiences with tarot decks, and it comes down to this kind of understanding that not everybody is going to be gifted in reading a tarot deck.
Right.
You can use the booklet and you can do the tarot deck, and it will give you the rote answer, the answer that is uh, by the book. But there are people who just have that innate ability. They understand the book symbology, but they also understand the deeper underlying meanings. So, a tarot deck is definitely a personal journey. I think that people need to really embrace the idea that you are not simply reading the card, looking at the card, and saying, well, this card means blank.
Mm.
You have to kind of invest some of your own energies, your own knowledge, and awaken some of that psychic ability that's dormant in everyone, except for psychics, who it's not dormant in; it's kind of active.
Now, a tarot deck does not have to be a tarot deck,
That
right?
is correct.
Because we have a deck of cards here that's a
Yes.
typical deck of cards that were used as a tarot deck and then became haunted.
That is true. That is very true. We do have a deck of regular playing cards, and reading cards. The regular playing cards is as prevalent as the tarot deck. In fact, because of its um, commonality, playing cards are used for divination all the time, and in many cases, you still are dealing with these four suits that represent these very four spiritual principles that kind of guide our lives. And then, of course, you have the higher arcana, the royal uh, face cards, and then
Mhm.
the numbered cards, each of them carrying with it a certain weight, and of course the suit backing it up. So there is ways to utilize all these things, and people do utilize regular playing cards. And so, yeah, the relationship to tarot was developed utilizing the same concept and construct as playing cards were developed.
Uh, do you happen to know if it started with playing cards and then tarot cards came about, or were tarot cards equally like distributed?
That is an excellent question, and I don't actually know where the division
Mm-hmm.
came from, because it's possible that what was happening was there was a card system
Mm-hmm.
that was neither playing card nor tarot deck, that kind of existed and
Yeah.
split into more regimented card play and then tarot deck. But I want to say that the game came first,
Right.
that the use of it for recreation before divination, I feel like that's the case, but I could be wrong. And the
So,
only reason I say that is because of its numeric values. Having
mm,
numeric values to a card does suggest that you're trying to assign a value to the cards that allow you to score
mhm.
or win in a game.
So here's the real question:
Yes.
can you use tarot cards to play poker?
You would have to come up with a very intriguing game of poker, because in tarot you have a lot more of the higher arcana sitting on top of kings and queens and pages and all the things that we would recognize as knights. So if you took all the arcana out, you probably could play a pretty mean game of poker.
I'm gonna develop tarot poker.
Tarot poker would be kind of awesome because there would no doubt be a hierarchy
Yeah.
amongst the actual arcana, higher arcana, versus the numbered cards.
That's interesting. Anyway, tea.
Oh, we did tarot.
We did tarot.
Did you want something else?
I didn't have anything else.
Oh
So.
yeah, we're moving on. We're trying to get to Z.
Yes.
So that brings us to
U.
UFO,
UFO.
UAP, unidentified flying object, unidentified aerial phenomenon. These are terms that kind of blanket over what most people deem to be extraterrestrial appearances in
Mhm.
our uh, space, on our planet. Um, and UFOs can obviously be their own series. There
Oh,
are
sure.
plenty of
Yeah.
podcasts that only deal with UFO and UFO sightings and UAP sightings and things of that nature. We are and have always been fascinated with the idea of travelers from another world. And even before we had the right terms for extraterrestrials, there were stories of travelers from the heavens,
Mhm.
travelers from other lands that were, far more technological or far more magical or whatever, which seemed to be interdimensional, if not extraterrestrial. So I think that we are dealing with, sort of a consensus among people that UFOs and UAPs as extraterrestrial or extra dimensional craft are it's just accepted.
Right.
I do not think that even the diehard skeptics accept that it's an unidentified thing. And there are plenty of people who are like, well, it's just a man-made, vehicle that we, never saw, and therefore it's unidentified. And that's perfectly fine, but it does give us pause every time
Sure.
when somebody catches an image and they just can't explain it. It it falls into those two camps. Is it extraterrestrial, or is it some kind of man-made craft that behaves in a way that we cannot comprehend?
I've actually never heard the term UAP before.
Oh, UAP is a recent replacement of
Hmm.
UFO. I want to say that maybe in the last decade or so, they've tried to outsource UFO,
Uh,
because a UFO does denote that it's flying, suggesting that it is somehow propulsed. By calling it a unidentified aerial phenomenon, it just means something in the sky, something above the land,
right.
and it could be some kind of natural phenomenon, ball lightning or something of that nature. And they wanted to get away from the idea that it is a craft of some type,
Hmm.
and sort of land it into the idea that it could be any number of phenomenon that we just don't understand.
It's possible to, says the guy who doesn't know anything about anything, uh, that if there were aliens, they could come in something other than a craft.
Yeah, absolutely. And people, they we have such limited notions of space and time, and we
Hmm.
have such limited notions of how to procure power. We're still burning fossil fuels, and it's like that seems outdated by a
Quite a bit.
century.
Yeah.
So we are dealing with possible civilizations that are utilizing a different mode of transportation. They could be traveling on beams of light. They could
Mm.
be traveling in spiritual vessels that are piloted by the soul. We don't know.
Balls of lightning.
Balls of lightning.
So that's you.
That's you. V
V O
V
V.
vampire.
Blah,
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 blah. Tell us
blah.
everything you know about vampires. Go.
Vampires are an undead species that get their life force by drinking blood. They are supposedly adverse to garlic,
Mm-hmm.
crosses or crucifixes,
Mm-hmm.
and sunlight.
There you go. That is a solid vampire summary. And what's interesting too is that every culture on the face of the earth has some kind of form of vampirism, some kind of form of vampire. And the variations have different weaknesses and even different feeding habits. But ultimately, if every culture on the face of the earth has this kind of strange return from the dead, blood drinking or spirit drinking, energy drinking
Mm-hmm.
entity, it begs the question, what's going on?
Yeah.
What is
Yeah. If
happening?
everybody,
Why does everybody seem to think that this is a possibility?
it's so easy for us to think of things in our modern sense with internet, and everybody talks to everybody about everything, and you know what's happening in Timbuktu if you really want to know. But when you think about it, when nobody was connected and we all have those same stories, it really is telling.
Yes, exactly. We're talking about cultures that did not even know the other existed.
Right.
These are cultures yet to be discovered by each other,
Hmm.
and they're telling the same kinds of tales and the same kinds of stories. And there's a possibility that because of the root of most of our fears, they are the same, like misdiagnosing death and having a person wake
Sure.
up,
Yeah.
or those kinds of notions probably happened everywhere. People saw somebody and was like, oh well, that's a dead person,
Hmm.
and then they started the burial process and they got up and it's like, well, I'm not going to sleep well tonight. So they came up with stories that explained why the dead person got up.
Now, I believe this is true, but I am often wrong. There are people who are legitimate vampires
Yes, absolutely.
that they actually drink blood.
That is correct. There is the lifestyle.
Yes.
The vampire lifestyle is acknowledged by a lot of places and understood because it is about the consuming of blood and the consuming of each other's energy and devoting one's energy to another person and back and forth and these kinds of behaviors. And it is more of a um, a mode of behavior than
Right.
an actual, supernatural or
Right. They don't
paranormal.
have to drink blood.
Right.
They
They're
choose to.
not surviving on the blood. However, their lifestyle and what they do adheres to what they believe to be a vampiric protocol.
Anecdote.
Yes.
I once worked for a ghost tour company. I was in
Yes.
charge of the ghost tour company. That meant I was in charge of hiring. I had a young woman come in one time. She was a redhead, so she was very pale, and she told me in the interview that she was a vampire.
Yep. There you go.
I probably should have hired her on the spot, but you've got only so many people, and you lose some people because people are drinking their blood and blah blah
It's
blah.
an HR nightmare.
It really is. So I did not end up hiring, but that was what I assumed she meant, was that she was part of the lifestyle of a vampire.
Yes.
She may
Yes.
have meant she was a legitimate vampire.
And
I may have
and
met a
what
vampire, and I don't
what
know it.
better way to hide yourself than to just come
Yeah,
out and say you're a vampire and let people just think there's some strange
yeah,
anecdote
yeah.
behind it.
So there you go. I've met a vampire.
Fantastic.
W.
Werewolves.
Werewolves.
So yes, vampires and werewolves go together like peas and carrots,
Like peas and carrots.
peanut butter and jelly. So werewolves, lycanthropy, a lycanthrope, is also a phenomenon known the world over.
Mhm.
And that it was wolves is predominant in cultures where wolves were dominant. However, if you go into other cultures, you'll find people turning into things like tigers and turning into things like buffalo and stags and bears and all of these other creatures. But the idea that a human would transform into some form of animal or hybrid animal beast is a widely known superstition, that it is a curse that falls upon people. In some cultures, it is a blessing. It
Hmm.
is the ability of a very holy person to be able to overcome their human attributes and assume these higher principled creatures. So it is interesting. But the werewolf, of course, became very popular because of a it's kind of like a penny novel in the 1800s that was circulated pretty widely. Um, oh gosh, I should know this. It's like Peter the werewolf, or it's the name of this person, and
Hmm.
it's the werewolf.
I've
And it
never
was
heard that.
a German publication, and it was just a little book that kind of detailed the story of a man who, bitten by a wolf, on the full moon, turns into a wolf. It has that cyclical curse where it happens. And this is one of those interesting things, because growing up, we got so many versions of werewolves that we start to really question. It's like, well, does he turn into the wolf on the full moon? Because technically, the full moon is only one night.
Right.
So is it just that one night? But in a lot of movies, it seems like it's the waxing and waning of the moon. So is he becoming more and more wolf-like until the full moon,
Yeah,
and
you would
then
think with
less
a
and
sliver
less?
of the moon, he's just
Right.
a little hairy.
He's just a little hairy, just a little grouchy.
Or she.
She.
Or they.
Yes, we're not saying wolf man. We're saying werewolf.
Now, Native American culture has spirit animals, but do they have that kind of transfiguration in
So,
Native American culture?
strangely enough, they really do. But one of the most notable that are talked about all the time are skinwalkers.
Oh, yes.
Skinwalkers are shaman who utilize sort of a divine magic to transform themselves into beasts. But in a lot of cases, and it's interesting because we use the term spirit animal a lot,
Mhm.
and it's something that we've kind of coined in the Western culture.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating because a lot of people recently were going through this whole, sort of, that's appropriation. You can't say you have a spirit animal, that's appropriation. What was fascinating was in a lot of native cultures, they're like, it's not appropriation. You put that on us. You're the ones who made it up, and you put it on us. You decided that we had spirit animals.
What?
It's true.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I found that very interesting because they don't deal with spirit animals the way that the West conceived that they do, even if they spoke of animals that guide them, or communing with nature in that fashion. The way that the West had defined spirit animals, it turned out, was not something that you could appropriate because it really didn't exist in their culture.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and worth acknowledging, that there are many content creators who are uh, of indigenous cultures, and they really do shine a light on the fact that so much of what we hear and so much of what we know is kind of a very um, Western lens. We are interpreting through what we understand what
Mm.
their culture is, and it has become kind of this by rote thing, even in the nations, because you'll hear people say, oh, I don't you shouldn't say skinwalker, or you shouldn't say wendigo, you shouldn't say these things, when the truth of the matter is skinwalker, the word, is not a native word.
Mm.
It's two Western words, two English words, and so there is a term that is indigenous. The fact that we recognized the word and then suddenly said, don't say that word. It's like, well, did we create the curse on that particular word? Is it, where did we
Hmm.
derive this kind of line that we're drawing in the sand saying we can't say that word? And yet that word is not the word that is used. It's
Hmm.
very interesting.
It is very interesting.
And it deserves a lot of cultural sensitivity, which I think that if you ever get a chance, do follow indigenous and other cultures. Follow people, creators of other cultures,
Yeah.
content creators.
Yeah.
Hear their stories, because they derive their understanding of nature from a different point of view. And because of that, the outcome is different. Their
Mm.
approach is different. And so while we kind of see what they're doing, we're oftentimes only subjected to our explanation of what they're doing and not necessarily their explanation of what they're doing.
Fair. Well, there we go.
What
X.
X?
I'll let you handle this one.
Thanks. I'm sure that if we went into like the Chinese and Aztec, we would find all kinds of X words.
Sure.
They are not in my head right now, so I'm going to say
X-Files is coming back.
X-Files is coming back, and I'm very excited.
I'm actually super excited about it.
Uh,
X-Files, like the first few seasons of Supernatural, was pretty legitimate as far as explanation.
oh yeah, X-Files was deriving most of their storylines from actual accounts and actual stories. They were just developing these fictional accounts to mirror true encounters and things, and they were utilizing and at the time they were taking stories kind of right out of the headlines and turning them into stories. There was one episode where they were using the face on the moon. There's like this weird face. It's either, or is it on Mars? It was this picture that came back, I think, from the Voyager, and it was like this weird face, and they like dumped it right into a storyline about an astronaut, and his face would like contort and change into the face on the moon, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's scary. But I think the X-Files was a great gateway to people being more accepting of the supernatural and paranormal in the 90s, because there was a lot of resistance to supernatural and paranormal stuff. And I think that the X-Files kind of created this world where there was this very smart and solid skeptic who created all this grounding sensation, so that when you're watching it, you could be like, well, I'm a Scully. I'm going to be on the side of I'm a Scully. I'm not buying into everything. But what was funny about being a Scully is there comes a point at which you can't be consistently that skeptical when last week you were nearly eaten by a ghost. When you've had the experience and the next time something happens, you're like, are you trying to tell me that this is happening? It's like, yes, where were you last week when your bones turned to goo? So it is very intriguing that the problem with skepticism in the face of continual barrage of proof to the contrary, you just seem stupid at some point.
But is it really against human nature?
It is not. It is not.
Moving on to why.
Moving on to why.
Yeti comes to mind.
Yeti does come to mind, and Yeti, of course, is just a Bigfoot in the cold regions, in the colder regions. The thing about the Yeti,
Abominable snowman.
the abominable snowman, the Yeti is a different color than our Bigfoot. Our Bigfoot in America is oftentimes seen as either very, very dark or shaggy brown, dark brown, or even black.
Yep.
But the Yeti is oftentimes that lighter brown, if not white, which is the abominable snowman.
They call it a Yeti or an abominable snowman instead of just calling it a polar Bigfoot.
Polar Bigfoot.
Because you've got your black bear and your polar bear. Why can't you just have your Bigfoot and your polar Bigfoot?
Don't know. I'm going to call it a regional and cultural
it's
thing.
Probably a regional thing where they didn't know what Bigfoot
because there's
existed.
Sasquatch, right?
Yeah.
Sasquatch and
Yeah.
Yeti. These are just terms for the same phenomenon, the same humanoid, large, furry creature. And the Yeti is, of course, a celebrated entity in Arctic regions.
Which brings us
To
Z. The culmination of all our work is here.
Z, of course, brings us to zombie.
Some kind of zombie.
Zombies have just literally become so much a part of our everyday dealings. We understand zombies so intimately and incredibly because of television, because of movies. There was a time when zombies were featured once every couple of years.
Yes.
We would see a zombie movie pop up and we're like, oh, a zombie movie. Now I would say that it is a daily zombie trudge.
There are television, like serial television shows
Absolutely.
about zombies. Yeah.
And here's something that always bothered me about zombie movies. They don't call them zombies. Why? Why do you avoid the word zombie? They're obviously zombies.
Yeah.
They call them walkers or the undead or, shamblers or whatever they call them. They avoid using the word zombie, the living dead, not zombie. And what makes it even weirder is the fact that in the definition of zombie, the textbook or dictionary definition of zombie is anything that has the appearance of being a revived dead entity. So
like when I
they
get up in the
are
morning.
actually zombies.
Yeah.
They are any zombie you see in a movie is a zombie because it just has to appear like a undead.
If you dress up like a zombie,
you
become a zombie.
You become a zombie. And so it's weird that so many movies, so many franchises try to get away from the Z word. Because I think they fear that it is either too generic a term, or maybe they're fearful of its cultural appropriation as well, since zombie is a phrase that or a word that comes from the voodoo and Haitian culture, Angolan, where zombie is a god that is responsible for bringing people back to life. So it's like a snake, voodoo snake god. So there's lots of reasons why zombie might be excluded. However, I don't understand it. We all know what a zombie is. If there's a zombie walking down the street, I'm not going to try to come up with a different word. I'm going to be like, zombie. I'm not going to be like, that person who seems to be of the nature of a dead person who has come back to life, but I'm thinking that perhaps he is unwell somehow. But that is it. We actually made it to Z.
We made it to Z.
And we are actually, surprisingly, we're well before opening, but there's a line outside.
Yep.
So we are going to start attending to our customers. Thank you so much for joining us. And starting next week, we're going to be posting more stories from the museum. We'll still be dealing with the alphabet every now and then, but
and explaining paranormal things.
Explaining paranormal things
for me,
but a little more closely to our experience point. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.